Well, that wonderful friendly pooch you have just bit your neighbor, and now you don't know what to do about it, and the neighbor's not sure what to do about it either, so this video might help both of you. Not too long ago, I was walking in a neighborhood in another city and strolling my grandbaby, and there was a very vicious dog attached by a chain to a tree. And as we went by, the dog reared up on his back legs and exposed his teeth and growled. It just looked very vicious to me. So I said to the person that owned the dog, I hope that chain doesn't break. And she said, well, don't worry, he's really friendly. And that didn't offer much assurance to me at the time, but thank goodness the chain didn't break. But when a dog bites, Florida law is a little different than many other states. In other states, you get a free bite before you are held responsible for the next bite. In other words, how could you know your dog's going to bite somebody unless they've bitten before? In Florida, that evidence might be relevant, but you're liable for the first dog bite. That is the first time the dog bites you. Now, what's involved if a person aggravates the daylights out of the dog? An example would be the neighbor comes over and visiting with you, and you've got this nice dog right there, and the dog's sitting, he's not doing anything, and the neighbor doesn't like him, so he smacks the dog and says, get out of here, get out of my face, hits him, and the dog bites him. Well, in Florida, it's called comparative fault, so you might want to look at our video on comparative fault. You compare the fault of the person who got bitten, I guess, by the person who owns the dog. Who's got the greater fault here? Well, you could say, and a jury would say, you slapped that dog, we're going to give you 100% of the fault. You don't make a nickel recovery. But let's say they gave the 90% fault to the person that hit the dog. That means they'd get a 10% recovery for whatever their damages. So if the damages were $5,000, they'd get $500. That's called comparative fault. But comparative fault doesn't apply to little kids. A child 6 or under can't be comparatively at fault. In other words, whatever a child does can't be considered to have caused the dog to bite him. And you might say, well, yeah, but some little kids are bad. Okay, that's probably true. But some little kids are bad. Some little kids cause a lot of problems for dogs. But there's no liability. There's no liability on a 6-year-old comparatively. No fault on a 6-year-old comparatively. Good thing to do, I think, imperative that when you are bitten by a dog is to report it to the county health authorities. You want to make sure that the dog has been properly vaccinated, or they have to quarantine the dog, because what you don't want to ever get under any circumstance is rabies, and it's serious and it's life-threatening, and you can't just disregard the fact that you've been bitten by a dog. Jurors are understanding that where a person has posted a sign in the yard that says bad dog, and you walk in and you think you're Billy Tough Guy and you get bitten, the owner's not responsible if the sign is conspicuously placed where everybody can see it and read it, and it says bad dog, and you're dumb enough to go in the yard. You're not going to make a recovery under those circumstances. Bob Kerrigan for Kerrigan, Estess, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson. We're board-certified specialists, and we do handle dog bite cases where people have been seriously injured. I've been involved in cases where there have been tragic injuries to young children. And it happens sometimes with grandparents that have a small dog that's very protective of them, and they think the dog is loving and caring, and a little child plays with the dog, and then the dog bites. And the dog bites out of protection for the owners because they're animals. And you should always assume that when you have a little child near a dog, regardless of how wonderful the dog is, that the dog is capable of biting the child, and always be between the dog and the child. For further information about any kind of injury or death claim, contact our firm. There's no obligation and no charge for us to evaluate your case.